Three parts. The first part is about understanding Kumar-san and understanding him as a person first. Then the longest journey that he took in his life, which essentially is the Terumo Penpol story. And then post-retirement, what is he doing? Then we'll get into some informal chat as well. And then of course we'll open it up for questions. We're planning around 40 minutes of this chat and then another 15-20 minutes of chat. And of course there is high tea after, so do stay back, and there is a fairly wide cross section of people out here. Use this opportunity to network with others as well. So having said that, so Kumar-san, a little bit about you as a person, schooling, college, family.
Well, I think the fact that I went to several different educational institutions may have had some bearing on who I am, and what I'm like. So I went to three different, not by choice. I was supposed to go to those three different schools, and then three more colleges. But in retrospect, it may not have been a bad thing, because I was there for a certain length of time. So the minimum time I spent was 3 years, the maximum in one institution was 4 years. That's a reasonable amount of time. The good thing is that I have a pretty, even though I'm a very private person and I'm actually not very good at social interaction, I find I have a pretty large circle of friends thanks to these different institutions. So my wife, Sobita, we've been married now for 33 years, going on 34 years. She's running an organization. She's a trustee of People for Animals, the Trivandrum chapter, which is basically into animal welfare. And she also runs a small shelter of her own where she looks after 22 abandoned and rescued dogs. My son Vishnu did his engineering. He works for Amazon now in Bangalore. My daughter Pooja, she's finished her master's in the London School of Economics and London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine, a dual degree in health economics. So that's I'm a sports enthusiast. I love the movies and music.
Your graduation and B school, you went to Cochin University as well.
Correct.
So was Terumo Penpol the first point of entry for you in terms of after college?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I think I finished MBA and the next day I suddenly realized I didn't have a job, and it was not very easy to get jobs those days. So my brother had actually offered me a job midway through my second year. That's after the. But then I think he had thought better of it, because he didn't mention it again. So I had to go and ask him this time. But he was good enough to offer me the job.
So Kumar-san, your Terumo Penpol story, and I see some new faces, so I'm not sure. How many of you have heard of Terumo Penpol? Yeah, I think quite a few, and then there are a few hands which didn't come up as well. So maybe 2-3 lines on what Terumo Penpol is, and then how your journey started, and the Terumo Penpol story itself.
Yeah. So Terumo Penpol is a blood bag manufacturing company located in Trivandrum. It is part of the medical device industry. So it started as a very small organization. Currently it is, I think, the largest blood bag manufacturer in the world, and it accounts for something like 12% of the global blood bag production. So if I had to rewind and go back to the beginning, and a few things which occurred to me. We had some very severe constraints. So if I went back to my business school lessons, and if Penpol was a case study at the time, I think the consultant would have said, don't start, because there were too many things stacked against us. So what were these things? we didn't have technology, we didn't have business experience, we didn't have a business background, we don't come from a business family, we didn't have any money, most important of all, and no reputation, no name, nothing. So why would anybody start a business like that? Only my brother can answer that question about why he started that. So that was the challenge. But strangely enough, it might seem like a cliche when people say tough times bring out the best in you and it's good to have constraints and all that, but actually it is true from experience. So we had this huge problem of not having money and resources. So we couldn't hire the people we wanted to hire. I remember my brother trying to hire an IIM graduate back in 1985. And the CEO's salary at the time, that was his salary, was 5,000 rupees. This guy required 30,000 rupees. So, I mean, obviously, you couldn't do it. So we tried like this to get scientists, engineers, production heads, etc., and we just couldn't get anyone. So we were forced to do the next best thing, or the only thing open to us, which was to hire locally. And finally, it's okay, we've managed without let's say, the best talent in the world. And the interesting thing was, my brother, I've always had a very high regard for his intelligence. When I say intelligence, I don't mean just in the conventional sense. I mean in the sense of seeing something which maybe everybody doesn't see, and being able to see patterns. One of the things he said at that time, and I really don't know how he figured it out, was that you don't need, the best talent. You can do actually very well with whatever you have, provided you have a pretty clear idea of what you are doing. And if you are consistent, and if you offer training to the people who need to do it, that's enough. And I didn't agree with this at all, because it seemed to clash with whatever little I learned in MBA. But in practice, I found that what he said actually made some sense. So this was one. The second thing is, because of this forced frugality, we had to scrounge for everything. So we learned actually something like guerrilla warfare, and that's helped. And it's helped in a very strange way. I retired in 2020. I can live a reasonably comfortable life, so I don't have to ask anyone for money now. And then I took up this job with the government, and I find I'm exactly where I was in 1985. We have no money again. So it is back to scrounging, back to doing this guerrilla warfare, so it equipped me in retrospect.
Very interesting. Even so, the very Penpol story, so it started off as Peninsula Polymers. What was the inflection point where things started falling in place? Was it new markets? Was it the product? Was it the product quality which started? So what was that inflection point where things started looking up and things started becoming better?
That's a tough question actually, Rajesh, because the initial bad phase was so long that I didn't even know there was a good phase in business. And it just kept going. So, we're talking about 10, 15 years later, we're still struggling. But I get the question, and in my mind, I'd say it was, a major inflection point. Maybe there were 2 or 3 which you could view as inflection points. One certainly was when we started production in March 1987. And we were very, very, conscious of the fact that this is a medical device. It affects human health. Quality is the most. This was drilled into us by Sri Chitra. And we were absolutely clear that we're going to comply with whatever they tell us. And we complied. So we were very confident that whatever we are producing is good stuff. And we had a marketing agent, TTK Pharma, who were marketing our products across the country. Now, they were a pharma company and they knew nothing about medical devices. Now, this was actually a problem because we didn't know anything about medical devices either. We didn't realize it at the time, neither did Sri Chitra. This was the first technology that they developed. So now you put all these three ignorant fellows together, and what do you get? You know, that's pretty impressive ignorance. So anyway, we made these products, and then we are waiting for feedback from the market, and there's no feedback coming. So we assumed everything is fine, and we kept producing and shipping. So 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, and then suddenly the orders stopped. There's no order coming from TTK. We have only one customer, TTK Pharma. So we investigated what's up, and then they said, oh, there seem to be a few complaints. And we delved into this. So finally, after a little bit of toing and froing, in those days it was telexes, not even faxes. So telexes flying between the two MDs. A high-level meeting was set up in Madras, Chennai. And because we were a frugal company, the managing director used to stay in Woodlands and nowhere else. So this managing director of TTK Pharma, his technical director and the marketing vice president, all three of them came, met him in the room. And that discussion, which happened that evening, I think was a really big and very impactful stage in our company. So Mr. M.V. Kumar, who was the managing director of TTK Pharma, he knew my brother quite well, so they were on first name. So he said, Bala, I think we have a bit of a problem. So he said, yeah, tell me what's the problem. So he said, there are some complaints about your blood bags. So he said, okay, I mean, if you find, some lot is bad, send it back, we'll assess it in the factory. And if what you're saying is right, we'll take it back and replace it with fresh product. So what will you do with the affected products, supposing they are not of the requisite quality? So he said, we'll destroy it. That's what we're supposed to do. So then Mr. Kumar thought for a little while and said, actually, Bala, it's not such a small problem. There are quite a few complaints. So he said, okay, so whatever is affected, you send those lots back. Then finally he came out with it, and Mr. Kumar said, Bala, I don't know how to say this, all of them are bad. And my brother, I don't know what gave him the guts to say it, he said, send it back. He didn't think. And they sent it back. And I can vouch for it because I was one of 8 fellows who actually stood for 2 full days in a warehouse cutting up these bags so that they couldn't be used, because they were actually, the external surface of the bag was affected by fungus. And you can't take chances. The product was actually fine inside, but the packaging, we had an issue. So we took back the entire production of 6 months, destroyed it. We suffered a massive loss. And obviously we had to get more funding. How do you keep the company going? Fortunately, at that time we were majority controlled by the government. More than 51%. We were audited by the CAG. The government companies put in more money, we were able to survive. But that one decision did more to, I think, tell TTK, tell the market, tell our employees most of all, the importance of quality more than any declarations on the wall and any statements that he could have made. So that's something which I remember.
So just to clarify for the audience, when you say government funding, was it KSIDC who came and...
So KSIDC was our joint sector partner, and then NRDC of the Government of India. They had a 25% stake in the company also.
After this, When did the Japanese come in? When did Terumo come in?
Terumo came in actually in 99. So that is 14 years after we started the company. And that's a actually interesting story. So we were not planning on any association with Terumo or Baxter, which were the two really big companies in blood bags. Our reasoning was we are too small and they are too big. So we were looking for a mid-sized company, and we found what we thought was a great match in a Dutch company called NPBI. And things went very well with NPBI. We had actually almost signed on the dotted line. And they were going to invest and become a JV partner for Penpol. And then suddenly there was silence. We didn't hear anything from these guys. Later we heard, much later, that they had been acquired by Fresenius, a big German company. So while this was going on, a former colleague of mine, in between when I was in Penpol, I had this other very interesting experience. I've had lots of these unexpected, interesting experiences, many of which the architect was my brother. So one day he calls me and says, I'm at that time running the factory in Penpol. And I'm sort of settled down and doing my stuff now. So he called me one day and says, Kumar, good news for you is that starting next month, you will be the sales manager of TTK Pharma's Clinicare division, which will sell our blood bags also. So I was astounded. I mean, I have not asked for this. Nobody's talked to me about it. So, and he treated it as a done deal. He said he's already talked to the other Kumar, MV Kumar, the managing director of TTK. It's all done. And so you just have to pack your bags and go. I went. So for 2 years I worked for TTK Pharma as sales manager. And I came back because more interesting things happened. TTK and Penpol had a serious issue. Like they developed a blood bag of their own. And they were a big company, so there were sort of attempts to take over the company. Anyway, things worked out finally, so I came back from TTK to Penpol. So we've had these kind of interesting experiences all the time.
So the story of the Japanese coming in, how did they come?
Yeah, so that's right. So while I was in TTK Pharma, I had a colleague. So I shared a cabin with the medical director, a young guy. He was about my age or maybe a couple of years, very smart guy, Biren Sahu. So we parted ways after that. I went back. He stayed in, I think, TTK for a year or so. And then he joined Terumo in Singapore. So, a couple of years passed, nothing much happened. And then I get a call one day from Biren saying, hey Kumar, Terumo is interested in talking to you. Are you interested in talking to them? This is a godsend because this NPBI has gone out and there's nobody else and we needed basically funding. More than anything else, we needed the funding. And we couldn't think of anybody else who would invest in this company other than a strategic investor. So I checked with my brother and then we had he said, yeah, most welcome, come. So then Biren calls back and says, there's only one small request that the Japanese have. Can they see your factory? So I went back, had my discussion. So my brother Bala says, is that a good idea? So that was one of the few things I think I have contributed to the company. I said, see, this is the world's best company, Terumo. We know what we are. Let's show them everything. What can they steal from us? So he thought that was sensible. So we told the Japanese come. And they were free to see whatever they wanted. So anyway, to cut a long story short, while this was happening, within 2 weeks, we got a visit, after of course them talking to us, from Baxter. So I don't know how they knew, obviously they knew that Terumo was talking to us. Baxter came to Trivandrum and we almost tied up with them. But then the 97 financial crisis in Southeast Asia happened, so the CEO froze all investments. That didn't take place. And finally we started working with the Japanese. And there's an interesting sidelight to this. So I told you about, what can they steal from us? So after we signed everything, we were having this formal dinner. And there was a gentleman who ran their manufacturing, global manufacturing head, Tani-san. So he didn't speak any English, I didn't speak any Japanese, so everything is through the interpreter. So we are trying to make conversation, and so I was trying to tell him that, we've long admired Terumo, this is the gold standard, which is all true. It was not just empty flattery. And I said we would like to learn from you, and we're really looking forward to absorbing the technology, etc. So he just looked, he didn't react. And then he's telling me through the translator. So they used to call me Pado-san. Padmakumar is a mouthful, so Pado-san. Pado-san, I could hear the Pado-san. Can you, the exact words, can you teach us how to do sterilization the way you do it? So I thought first I must be hearing it wrong, I said, can you repeat it? And that guy said, no, this is exactly what he said. So I was astounded. Then he goes on to clarify. He says, Pado-san, see, we know how to make blood bags. We're pretty good at it. This is one area which we've not been able to master. So we're still doing this strange thing of sterilizing the bag, then labeling it, then pasteurizing it, and then packaging it. Which is, he said, really not a good process. Your process is foolproof. How you do it, we don't know. So can you teach us? So I was thinking, he owns the company, why is he asking me, But that is the Japanese for you. They're very interesting people.
So again, the Japanese experience, some pluses and minuses of working with them. Have they, sort of drove you up the wall in some instances, and have they been extremely useful in terms of your learning process as well?
That's a very interesting question. Actually, initially they did drive us up the wall a little bit, but we realized how good they were when subsequently they bought an American company and we had to report to the Americans as part of this vertical thing. Canadian BCT. Then only we realized how good the Japanese were. So let's look at the pluses and minuses. And this is in contrast to our experience with the Americans. Our communication with the Japanese was fantastic. We understood each other, even though they're speaking in Japanese and we didn't learn Japanese. And some of them spoke decent English, many of them didn't speak a word of English. But we understood each other very well. Communication was restricted to probably invoices coming or payments, going, that kind of thing. Once a year, mail will come from their chairman to Balasan and a few things like that. And once a year he would go to Japan, there would be a meeting. Now contrast this with, they bought this American company in 2011 and I had the misfortune of 9 years I had to work with this Lord. Yeah. My God, we were inundated by emails, morning, noon and night. There are calls. There are calls late at night, early in the morning. And these endless calls don't yield anything. So you're talking but without speaking, right? Like Simon and Garfunkel said, it was absolutely crazy. So this was one thing which I understood the meaning of communication after this contrasting experience. The second thing, again, this has something to do with communication, but it is a lot more to do with manufacturing, really about manufacturing. The Japanese believe in this concept of going to Gemba, which is basically going to where the action is. So don't take anything, at face value. Don't take it second hand. Don't just go by the report. Go and see for yourself. And this is especially important in manufacturing. And one reason why Terumo Penpol's quality is so good, it is considered today the best in their entire group, maybe even better than Japan, is because we have faithfully implemented that. And we haven't relied too much on our computer screens. So this is quite different from our, again, experience with the Americans, who have great faith and I think excessive reliance on spreadsheets and reports, which certainly have their place, but no substitute for seeing something for yourself. So that is the second thing. And the third, and probably the most important thing of all, I don't know if you're aware that in 2002, we were technically bankrupt. So this is after the acquisition. And I'm reasonably sure if any other partner was there, both of us would have been out on a year and they would have taken over the company. Instead, what they did was, I think they made an assessment of who these people are. And they realized that this was errors, maybe incompetence, not, nothing malafide here. So, even though we had dug ourselves into a hole, we were actually, they bailed us out. They pumped in a hell of a lot of money. And they didn't do anything like, bring in some draconian new, nothing. It was unbelievable for me. I mean, this and that show of faith, I think, you had to repay it. What else could a person do?
So now the last 5-6 years, how what is now transitioned? It's become Terumo, it's now Terumo BCT Canadian.
No, the company is still called Terumo Penpol. It is a part of this vertical for blood transfusion. Terumo has 3 verticals. One is cardiology and cardiovascular, general hospital products, and the third is transfusion. So Terumo BCT is the subsidiary of Terumo in the US, and they manage the transfusion vertical.
Right. So you have somebody from Terumo BCT now sitting in...
Not sitting here, he actually sits in Denver.
This is Chetan, is it?
Chetan Makar.
Interesting. So Kumar-san, the next phase, so fairly long phase and nearly an entire career you've given to them. What next? What are you doing now? And it seems even more interesting.
Yeah, so I was very sure about one thing, that there is no way I'm going to sit around doing nothing. Even if I could afford to do so, that I need to be engaged fully. And I had decided actually to start a business. So I incorporated the company in February 2020. I retired in March 2020. But then one didn't plan for COVID. And so that upset my plans. So although the company was registered, I didn't start. And then practically within a year and a half, this assignment came up from the Kerala government. So I now work for the Kerala government full-time as special officer of the Kerala Medical Technology Consortium. And this has been set up basically to promote the medical device industry in the state. So the Kerala government has identified 22 priority sectors which they feel there is a future for the state of Kerala. And that's basically based on Kerala's unique characteristics. One, the fact that we don't have land, so you can't have, because of our dense population, so you can't have industries where the requirement is very big. too ecologically fragile and very literate and aware citizenry. So therefore you cannot have polluting industries. The one thing we do have is plenty of people, some would say too many people, but all skilled and qualified and educated. So that's a big resource pool. So any industry which can work within these constraints and take advantage of this asset, I think would do well. And medical devices is certainly one of those industries.
So what is your role here? Is it to build the local infrastructure? Is it to look at possible investments from other parts of India or outside India?
Not to build infrastructure actually, though the original DPR did envisage something like that. The original DPR before I joined envisaged setting up of 5 big multidisciplinary research institutions across the state. So to which I and my colleagues said we don't think that's. My honest opinion was that we are something like 5 or 6 medium-sized companies are there in Kerala, and we must be doing about 700-800 crores worth of revenue. So since then, since I had to do this job, we mapped out the ecosystem, the research labs, the university departments, hospitals, and the industry. So instead of 5 or 6, we find there are 76 companies in Kerala, and the combined turnover is 8,700 crores. So that's $1.05 billion, which is at least 15% of India's production. And these companies have been around, most of them, for a fairly long time. We're talking about at least 30 years.
Which brings me to this question on, so when Balasan and I used to discuss earlier, and then it was one of those nights where we spoke through the night and we listed a few of these companies which generally people are not aware of. And we spoke also about these gems in Kerala. There are institutions, there are companies which an average person doesn't know of. So what are some of those gems that you have seen in the last 3-4 years? Some institutions of repute which a normal Keralite doesn't know of.
I'll start with Sri Chitra. See, most people would have heard about Sri Chitra, but most people would have no idea what Sri Chitra is. Largely, people think it is a super specialty hospital, teaching hospital with focus on cardiology and neurology, which is correct. But that's only half the story. The other half, actually not even half, I would say 1/3. 1/3 is the biomedical technology wing, which is the nodal center for biomedical research in India. It has been the fount of the biomedical device. You could say that the industry started with Sri Chitra in India, formally. See, otherwise, till then it was just a cottage industry. And any worthwhile product developed in this country has basically come out from this one institution. The other 1/3 is the Achyutha Center for Health Sciences, which is again largely unknown. And I think we in Kerala, because it's now a central government institution, there's always this slightly hands-off relationship, which is, I think, to our detriment. It is our institution. The government of Kerala only set it up in the first place, after which it was taken over at the request of the state government by Government of India. So it is very much a part of Kerala, and we should really use that. So I would say that. There are some great university departments which are again doing great work, but not very well known. The Polymer Science and Rubber Technology Department in MG University comes to mind. Likewise in QSAT. Then the Rubber Research Institute of India has actually developed technologies which very few people know about, including medical technologies which are badly needed. For example, there is a product called Foley balloon catheter, which is used in catheterization along with urine bags. Now these are even today mostly imported, and the best products are imported. We have some substandard Indian products. We used to actually, in between Penpol, we used to sell urine bags and Foley catheters. enormous market. It would be 10 times the market of for blood banks. And the technology is available right here, but it's not being used. And no company seems to be coming forward. So I'm sorely tempted to quit this job and start making inhibitors.
That's interesting. So, what about the startup ecosystem? Is there any regular interaction you have with them as part of your new role?
Yes, very much so. We work very closely with the Kerala Startup Mission and with startups. So just to give you an idea about how we are currently constituted, we have, it's called a coordination committee. The chairman is the chief principal secretary to the chief minister, Dr. KM Prime. Other members are the principal secretary industries, principal secretary health, the member secretary of KDISC, the CEO of Startup Mission, KSIDC managing director, and myself. So recognizing the fact that medical devices can actually succeed only in clusters, you need all of these different elements to work together. And when you talk about a cluster, you're saying basically hospitals, teaching hospitals. You need a research lab, you need the university, you need startups, and you need industry. So we have all of these things in Kerala in different locations. For example, Cochin, QSAT and Kalamassery is a great potential hub, a cluster. But it's not a cluster because nobody talks to the other. Likewise, Trivandrum is another fantastic potential cluster. So is Palakkad, and so is Kozhikode.
Very interesting. You also mentioned, in fact, when we spoke, you mentioned about this institute which is there. Is it Irnyalakuda or yeah, which is doing some research on disabilities, and so if you could tell the audience as well about this particular institute. So Tom was also here. Who has interest.
So maybe what I can do, Rajesh, is not just talk about this institute. This is sort of pet subject of mine, and for the last year and a half, I've been doing a fair bit of research and study into the field of assistive technology. So tomorrow we are having a KMTC Stakeholder Connect meet at NIPMAR, that's the National Institute of Physical Medicine and Rehabilitation in Irnyalakuda. So KMTC, as part of its work, like I said, we try and bring all the different stakeholders together. Since we are short on resources, we obviously can't do mega events. So what we do is we partner with an institution like NIPMA, or we've done with the NIT Calicut, with Malabar Cancer Center in Talasheri, with MG University, Kuhas, K. Vasu, and various others, QSAT also. And we partner with them, we bring the content, the speakers, the most of the actual meat of the program, and they generally help us with the logistics and the providing the venue, the facility, and so on. So when we looked at, I'll just take a step back, and why assistive technology? When we look at the Kerala medical device industry, we realize that Kerala is too small and has too few resources to be a player. Unless we choose. We have to make a choice and decide where we're going to focus. So a couple of things suggested themselves. One, medical rubber accounts for about half of our current revenues. That is our strength. And that should be our strength going into the future, because rubber is sustainable. And I don't know how many people know about this, but there is a UN project which is sort of, little shaky at the moment. I hope it gathers momentum to phase out PVC from healthcare. A lot of medical devices, including our blood bags, are made from PVC. But I think the time has come where we really have to think about the future. So we think that sustainable materials, rubber is the future, so that's self-evident. Second is medical electronics, which accounts for about 30% of the industry. And Kerala has a tremendous strength in electronics. After all, the Indian electronics industry started here. But I think we may have lost our way a little bit. Hopefully the government is getting its act together and is going to fund and back Keltron and also encourage the private sector. So these two we thought we can build on. Why assistive technology is because I can give you some statistics. 90% of people in the world who need it don't have access to assistive technology. So the best countries in the world apparently are in Scandinavia when it comes to most things, and there it is a little over 80% access. In India, if things are really bad, the access is 3%. So why is this so? One, because there is no money in it. And the only money which comes to it is actually as handouts, either by the government or by philanthropists. See, it's not a priority for either, because basically disability is invisible. This is something which I have come to realize in the last year and a half. It's almost as if it doesn't exist, the way most people seem to. It's not that we are all bad people or anything. If it's not there, what can you do about it, right? So we were thinking a little differently. For some reason, maybe because of the money, nobody is interested in it. So let's do it because nobody is interested, because there will not be much competition. Nobody is going to come and fight with me if I want to make assistive technology products. So I'm very sure the minute I step out of here, I'm going to start manufacturing assistive technology products. I haven't decided which one. I mean, I have a short list of a few products, but that's definitely going to happen. It's a good thing if you ask me to do it. It's going to fulfill a need. And I think it could be good business. And I also firmly believe that until it becomes a business, access is going to be a problem.
Very interesting. Just for all of you, we also have a vertical in TiE, which is on assisted living. And we look at areas like assistive technologies. We are also looking at what are the kind of funds which are available for some of these institutions, which are not just the technologies but also the physical institutions. So we look at that as well. So Kumar-san, fascinating journey, interesting. So what do you do during leisure? What do you read? What do you watch? Is there something interesting that you want to tell the audience in terms of a book or in terms of a show or a movie?
So I used to be a pretty voracious reader, but then of late I'm finding, maybe it's a sign of advancing age, that I can't read the way I used to. I always have a book with me every day. I used to read, and I used to read fairly indiscriminately. So I like all kinds of topics, science, history, fiction. I love thrillers and murder mysteries especially. Actually, these murder mysteries also help you in quality management, because it might sound facetious, but the method employed in quality management was basically designed by Sherlock Holmes. So what did he say? When you have eliminated each suspect and finally you nailed down the butler who did it, however improbable it may seem, that's the culprit. So that is exactly the philosophy of root cause analysis of the Japanese. The fishbone diagram, the Ishikawa diagram and all that is exactly saying basically the same thing. So, I mean, on that note, talking about what I like, my all-time favorites are actually Sherlock Holmes, The Count of Monte Cristo, To Kill a Mockingbird, books like that. Then more current stuff, I finding it a little difficult to read the modern fiction. I stopped with, what's the guy's name? Joe Nesbo and Michael Connelly. So after that, I haven't been able to discover anybody interesting. On a little more serious note, Thinking Fast and Slow, Kahneman. Then right now I'm reading that book we discussed. You've already read it, I think. Deep Medicine, Eric Topol. Few books like that. The shows that basically I have a problem at home. We have only one working TV now. We need to invest in one more. My wife doesn't like my bloodthirsty movies. And so my favorite show of all time is Breaking Bad. I don't know if you've seen it. I loved it. And that just set me off on a trip watching stuff like that. Then I saw this great movie recently, Lapata Ladies. Fabulous. And I like everything. I like Hindi, Malayalam, anything. I used to watch a lot of Tamil movies in college. Then I sort of lost touch, that's all.
So thanks. Pato-san instead of Kumar-san. And I think we'll open it up for questions and then sum it up. So if you have any questions, just raise your hand. If you could briefly introduce yourself in a live as well. Any questions based on what he said or anything related, anything in your mind?
You had plans to start a business after retirement. Now, are you thinking of starting it again?
Yes, absolutely. In fact, I am thinking I should quit fast and start.
It is in the medical device.
Actually, two different businesses. Medical devices, I'm not planning to get into manufacturing right now because it's a little more difficult and it requires a little more investment of time, effort, and money. But the assistive technology, yes, definitely.
So one question that something which I wanted to listen was about the One Health program that you have been speaking about.
I'm glad I actually forgot to mention that this is another of my pet things. So we just had an interesting conference, the TRIMA, which is run by the Trivandrum Management Association. And this year's theme was One Health. So initially everybody was wondering what is One Health and all of that. But I think it makes a lot of sense. I heard about this concept first about 10, 12 years back. And the surprising thing is that our state of knowledge of this what is probably the most useful concept known to man is roughly the same as it was 10 years ago. So nobody seems to be taking it very seriously. Most governments in the world seem to have ignored it. The United Nations and the WHO are earnestly plugging away at it. I don't think the government of India is very interested in it. The Kerala government is showing a little more interest. They actually have done something. So let's hope that they can build on it. So what is One Health? It just means that the health of plants, animals, microbes, human beings, the environment are all interconnected. You cannot affect the health of one without affecting the health of the other. Now, what is the biggest problem facing us today? So some may say it is the value of the rupee. Others may think it is the war in Gaza or the war in Ukraine or something. I would say it's our survival and climate change, and these are the really important things. And it's crazy to me that we can't recognize this. So here is a concept which, if you can actually implement it, and it's fairly simple stuff, you can solve the biggest problem which is facing us. So we made a modest beginning, at this TRIMA conference, and I'm hoping that this can gain a little traction and more people will get to know about it. I'm not sure, Mani, whether I'm qualified to talk about it, but let me try. This is purely personal viewpoint. I think most people who are considered good leaders are not good leaders. It depends on how you define it. For me, there is one guy who stands for leadership. He's not a business leader, he's a political leader. And I'll tell you why I think he's a good leader. It is Abraham Lincoln. So I didn't mention that book which made a huge impact on me, Team of Rivals. Have you read the Team? So if you read Team of Rivals, you will know about this man. See, he was a dark horse. He was not the first choice or the second choice or even the fifth choice for president. They couldn't decide on whom to make president, and finally he was the compromise candidate, Lincoln. But he became president. The guy who was the most popular chap in the United States, who eventually became Secretary of State, was invited by Lincoln to become Secretary of State, well knowing that he's going to be another, what shall I, center of power and far more influential than the president himself. So that itself shows some strength of character, your ability to identify the right guy and put him there, irrespective of what you think. I don't know how many current leaders have the guts and the security to be able to do that. But what is even more interesting is his selection of the Secretary for War, who hated his guts and who was working day and night to pull Lincoln down, and he knew it. So his close friend and aide came and asked Lincoln, Mr. President, why are you doing this? Don't you know this chap is doing this? He's stabbing you in the back. So he says, yes, I wasn't born yesterday, I know that. But we are fighting a war. The moment you get me a better Secretary of War, I'll kick this guy out. Now this is leadership. If you're thinking about the organization more and you're not so worried about your person, how many leaders are there like that today in any organization? So to me, I think that's one of the most essential or important ingredients of leadership. And the other thing I would say is that we are confusing form with content. I would much rather have a Japanese style CEO whom you hardly see, who doesn't talk much, but who takes the necessary decisions and allows people to get on with it, than some superstar CEO who is, all over the place.
You said about the 15 years which was very difficult for Penpol, which was a struggle. What kept you going? Because here we talk about 5 years and we are like after time saying, okay, let's call it quits. 15 years is a lot of time.
We didn't have any other choice. If we had anything better to do, we would have done it. We simply didn't have a choice, that's all. Tiger by the tail. I think if you ask my brother that, he'll tell you this. They were competing with us in the Indian market. And they have been competing with us using some serious firepower. Their partner in India was India's, at that time, biggest pharma company, Ranbaxy, which also had a medical device division, and they were very aggressive marketing guys. They got nowhere in this market. They never went above 5% market share. So they tried competing with us. I think they realized that they cannot, and they must have decided, okay, you can't beat them, buy them. A slightly entertaining story. So I went as sales manager of this newly formed clinic care division, which was the smallest division in TTK Pharma. It was a big company at the time. We're talking about, which year was it? 1992, when 100 crores was a lot of money. And TTK Pharma was one of the few 100 crore companies in the country, any business. So we were at that time probably 10 crores or something, tiny part of this thing. So we had a small team, and this was about 15 people. Basically, I had 3-4 regional managers and under them. So I was completely unsuited for this job. I had no experience in selling. I had no training, and I have now been suddenly catapulted as sales manager over a set of seasoned, hardened veterans. And I am wondering, how am I going to manage these fellows? So sometimes you fall back on instinct. So I told myself, see, I can't go wrong if I go and visit customers. So I made it a point, and luckily the company allowed me to do that. I traveled the length and breadth of India visiting blood banks and customers, understanding what was happening to our products. While doing so, I also managed to get the, let's say, establish a good relationship with my team. So the basis of the relationship was very good and very simple. I knew, they knew more than me. They also knew that. So we respected that. So by and large, I allowed these guys to do not what they wanted, what they, let's say, proposed. And if I agreed with that, by and large, I found most of the things they were doing were very sensible, and I just had to go along with that. So anyway, we formed a good team. And we were the sort of, I wouldn't say neglected, but definitely not in the center of things. So I told you that there was a problem between us and TTK. And they went ahead and, without telling Penpol. So I'm sales manager of Clinic Head Division. So one day I get a call from my brother. And he's yelling at me, "Kumar, what the hell are you guys doing out there?" So I said, "What happened?" "Did you know that you guys are developing a blood bag?" So I said, "No." So he said, "I don't know which is worse, the fact that you don't know or the fact that you're doing this." So I'm thinking, bloody hell, why is he blaming me for all this? No? So I slowly investigated on it and found it was true. So, but this was a terrible, breach of faith. So anyway, I didn't have much to say about it. So I realized that this is not going to, this is going to lead to a breakup. And then I decided I'll go back to Penpol. So meanwhile, they were actually making a bid for a hostile takeover. It was a powerful group. And at that time, these guys were still in control, NRDC and all that. So I went and said goodbye to my team at one last meeting. And I told them, see, this is what is happening. So they knew all that, and they knew the facts. So I said, I'm leaving, I'm going back. See, if any of you guys wants to join me, you're free to come and join me. But I said, I can promise you one thing. There is a good chance that TTK will take over Penpol, and then you guys will be in serious trouble. So if you're willing to run that risk, I left the choice to them. Surprisingly, I think almost every single fellow came and joined us at great personal risk to themselves. I have no idea why they did, but I think they liked the company and they liked the product. And that product actually gave these guys a lot of, what should I say, self-respect in the market. They were somebody because ours was a unique product at the time. They did it. So I just had to do very little except continue whatever I had done, which was listen to these guys, and they built the market. This personal, I regret very much that we sold the company to Terumo. I wish I had kept the company. I wish we could have been, really something. Sorry? No, I'm saying, yeah, I think if we had managed better, if we didn't, we could have been a very successful company.
Over a vast period of time, you have raised multiple levels of funding. Correct?
Yeah.
How did the stake, diverse stake, what was it was forced on you, or it was your choice this much, the valuation part of it?
No, I think every time it was practically forced on us. See, because some of it was, I think, beyond our control. Some of it, I think, were, avoidable mistakes. If we had known better, we would have probably taken better decisions.
You record 6 months that products, you have any problem because of that? Because they come investors.
Calling of the products.
Yeah. So the investors were KSIDC, NRDC, and then private promoters. That is basically us. I mean, this is a serious issue. But the decision was taken. So we didn't ask for anybody's permission to do that. We just went ahead and did it. Actually, my brother took that decision. I was just a foot soldier at the time. So I don't know how he had the guts to take that decision. I would never have taken such a decision. I wouldn't have had the guts to do. I mean, it was the right thing to do. I don't think.
At that time, the controlling stake was with you guys, with your brother.
No. It was with the government. 51% was with the KSIDC and NRDC.
Still you took a decision.
What are your learnings from the Japanese in personal life and also in business management?
It's a very good question. Yeah, I'm a great admirer of the Japanese. I had this friend who unfortunately passed away, Sano-san. Sano-san used to come and have dinner with me once in a while. And he loved music. He was an authority on rock, on rhythm and blues. When I say authority, a global authority on the subject. He had Japan's biggest collection of long playing records. He was a critic for Rolling Stone magazine. He really knew his stuff. So we used to play a game. I'll play the opening bars of a song, and I will try and pick the most outlandish or unheard of song, and I'll tell him, Sano-san, guess. And I said, so let's make it a serious thing, 100 rupees per guess. One evening, within 5 minutes, 500 rupees down, I said, okay, no more, we're not playing this game anymore. I don't know how he did it. He knew every song. So anyway, to answer that question, the Japanese are very interesting people. Initially, it's a little difficult to get to know them. But if you do get to know them, some of them are unbelievably great guys, very warm. They will stick by you through thick and thin if you have earned their trust. So that earning the trust, I think, is the initial little difficult part. And they have another very interesting philosophy. So the discussions during the day, in the formal discussions, are, as far as the Japanese is concerned, meaningless. That is just a ritual. The real discussion starts with the sake in the evening. So once you start drinking, according to the Japanese, your real heart comes out. And then you talk heart to heart. So they're waiting for that time. So I also, since I enjoy my drink, I also heartily endorse that Japanese. And then they told me, Padu-san, you are practically Japanese.
Last couple of questions when we break it. Of course, he's there. You can ask questions offline as well.
But I know what we would like Kerala and Kerala entrepreneurs to get into. So the broad categories are vision, hearing, then locomotor disability, then neurology. And in all these areas, there are small companies, a few, which are already operational in Kerala, many more outside Kerala. And Kerala's one strength is that we have some very good research institutions in these areas. Like there is, I already mentioned NIPMA, then you've got icons in Shornur and in Trivandrum. Then you've got a place called IUCBR, I think. It's a part of MG University. It's a super specialty hospital, come a development center, something like Chitra. But on, cognition and neurodegenerative diseases. Then there is a central government organization in Kozhikode. I keep forgetting the name. I haven't been there yet, but that's also active in this space. Then I think there's another one called Neelit in Kozhikode, something electronics. I think that's the one. So there are quite a few. And Sri Chitra also is doing a lot of work in assistive technology. But there is no industry. So the other interesting thing is we are trying to bring in ADB funding into, if possible, to Kerala. So we went and made a presentation to Niti Aayog, WHO and ADB in Delhi last year. So we just went and talked about KMTC and what we're trying to do around, and mentioned about assistive technology. So the ADB guy tells us that very refreshing to hear a state government representative, make these remarks, because he said we've been very disappointed with many countries in Asia, including India, because none of the countries seem to be interested in the regional center that ADB wants to set up. And obviously the funding is coming from them. So one good news that I got just yesterday is that Sanjeev Kaushik, IAS, former CMD of KFC, is now a very senior guy in ADB. So we've got a mold there. Hopefully we can get something done.
Any other burning questions? Otherwise, we'll can ask him questions. So thanks a lot, and thanks for coming again, Kumar-san. It's been an absolute pleasure hearing this. I have not heard your story as much as I've heard Balasan's story. It's always wonderful to hear your side of things as well. I think the last 14 years has been wonderful because of the kind of mentorship that we've got from Balasan and some of the seniors in TiE. And now with Kumar-san spending more and more time with TiE and others, we hope to get a lot more of him and his ideas as well. We wish you all the best for the new ventures, and I'm sure it's still young. Another 3-4 ventures I'm sure is still within you. Thanks a lot. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Kumar-san. Jacob, please hand over a token of appreciation to Rajesh. Thank you, Kumar-san. Thank you, Rajesh. Please enjoy. We'll have Kumar-san and will be here with us for next 30-40 minutes, so we can have a conversation over a cup of coffee. Thank you.